there was an email that went out talking about the first meeting of what was called The Minyan. And I think the email address was theminyan@gmail.com.
I remember debating whether we should meet in a party room on like 92nd and Broadway, which would fit 50 people. And we said, well, maybe just in case, let's try to find a bigger space. And we ended up with 125 people the first meeting.
Like many people of my ilk that are now at Darkhei, I came because my wife started to come and said, Neil, come with me.
Meeting once a month was not doing it for all of us,
Right.
if you recall. We all didn't know where to go in between. We didn't feel like it was actually our place yet because we met so rarely.
One really big shift was when we started meeting every Shabbat morning. It did really become for more people, like just their main shul, their place.
The lay-led aspect of it was incredibly powerful. And a lot of people involved in those early days were really drawn to that and it really appealed to, and I count myself among them, it really appealed to us.
For people who care about it, you could have a say. You could make a suggestion. You could have an idea. May or may not get done, people might not, but you had a say. You didn't just have to wait for permission.
I literally had tears in my eyes the first time, not just like once, but in the early days, with the women carrying the Torah, with the energy of all the young people.
I came because I was looking for a minyan where it would be comfortable to be out.
There was a commitment to tradition and to orthodoxy, but yet being very open to demands of what, of society as it is, as it's shared now.
Rabbi Sperber agreeing to it and coming to learn with us. And I remember the first time he came and learned with the board and just sort of rolling out that we are going to have a halachic process. This is our halachic process. Here's our core values.
The idea of Darkhei Noam, that its ways are pleasant, I really do feel like resonated for all of us. To have davening that just felt good to people.
I mean, so much of the beginning of the minyan involved schlepping things from one place to another because we never had a permanent home.
I did get entered in the line of duty. It was Purim 2007, and we were moving a Sefer Torah in Tamar Major's car, and I closed the car door on my thumb.
Kiddush has gone like all over the place. We've gone from hot to cold to hot to cold to vegetarian to non-vegetarian. There were some people on the board who wanted us to consider a dry Kiddush. That was a non-starter.
One of the pleasant surprises about the minyan was that women were getting up to lane and daven and doing it. Didn't seem odd. It didn't seem unusual. It just felt like you were coming to shul.
Sometimes when I was gabayit, you'd have a woman come up who'd never had an aliyah before. It's very moving.
The first time I went, and even on a Simchat Torah, and heard my daughter Lane, it was so incredible to me, to sit there. I was just shedding tears like that, that she could do this.
Simchat Torah was always my favorite day. Every year in those first years, they were women from the West Side who I hardly knew, often older, often women in their 60s or 70s who would come with grandchildren and who would say, I just want them to know that this is possible.
On the first Simchat Torah, Deborah Lipstadt brought her mother. And at some point I asked her if she wanted to hold the Torah, and we brought a chair and she sat down in the middle of a dancing circle.
Her mother said to me, I had to wait till I was 89 years old to touch a Torah, And I felt,
I had this experience with my mom where she came to shul and Noah was getting ready for her bat mitzvah, and she said to Noah, do you realize how lucky you are, how amazing it is to grow up in the shul? And Noah kind of looked at her like, no, it's something that she just totally took for granted. And that's the way that history works. And I think that's, wonderful. And like, she should grow up taking it for granted that she's going to have a bat mitzvah, she's going to get called to the Torah. And she did.
It was very moving to see that parents were choosing to have their sons celebrate their bar mitzvah at Darkhei Noam also. For me, as a mother of a boy, I love that this is Evan's picture of what normal davening looks like.
There's a good example of how, Darkhei's tent kept growing, even though initially children's programming wasn't part of the shul. Now it is.
Watching other families grow up in shul and having all these kids for whom this is their full, Jewish shul experience has been wonderful.
One of my other absolutely favorite moments is when they do the blessing of the children on Simchat Torah, seeing, how it's really evolved into a nice family shul.
One memory that I will never forget was when the Steves, Steve Greenberg, Steve Goldstein had their daughter.
There was not a dry eye in the house when he spoke about, I never thought I'd come to this day, that I'd have a family.
Calling them up to the Torah and naming Amalia at the Torah, and Etta and I looking at each other and looking at them. Genuinely, I had tears as I was reading the Tefillah.
The sense of real gratitude to Hashem for exactly, like what I had thought was impossible.
They were so excited actually to have this event to actually solidify what they stood for.
I think the Chesed committee is amazing in helping people go through challenging times.
Something that feels like another milestone when the Chevra Kadisha started. And that felt like another really important, sad, we hope not to need it, but a really important step.
Bikur Cholim has been important that's started thanks to you, Michelle.
I should say that the way Darkhei, the leadership conducted itself during the pandemic was mind-blowing, and the davening outside was a savings for people. Just was a community in a time of no community, and I felt like it never went away.
I did my Zoom with Darkhei and for Kaddish, and it became like my home, for Kaddish.
When you gather people together who all want to daven and have sort of a common purpose, the davening is actually very nice, because people are not there because they got pulled or they're not there. There were plenty of places to go. If you didn't want to go to Darkhei Noam, you didn't go. And so everyone who was there wanted to be there.
I really do feel like being a part of Darkhei Noam changed my life. I don't know where my husband and I and my kids would have found a place that we were comfortable if it weren't for this.
There's so much to love about Darkhei Noam. I think they've done an extraordinary job. Thoughtful, intelligent people, always grappling with the next thing. I think it's been beautiful.
My question is, who are going to be the next founders? I think that's our challenge going forward. Who ask not what your Darkhei can do for you, what can you do for your Darkhei?
My hope is that it will continue on the path it's on, is constantly figuring out what do we need to add, what do we need to do in order to keep making it the primary community and a vibrant community of the people who are there.
It's like the Mishkan. It's like everyone is carrying the Mishkan, and each person has, their job that they do, and every Shabbat it kind of gets put together, and it's a little different each Shabbat, and it's really beautiful.